Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today we are discussing a significant and challenging topic, the counselor's role, balancing confidentiality, ethics, and duty to warn. As counselors, we are often confronted with ethical dilemmas that test our ability to maintain professional integrity while prioritizing client and public safety. This presentation explores a complex case involving a client who reveals actions that contributed to the deaths of her mother and grandmother, both with advanced Alzheimer's. She is now poised to care for an elderly aunt, raising potential ethical and legal challenges.
Thank you, Mike. Let's delve into the first question. What are the counselor's obligations upon hearing this confession? To answer this, we must consider the ethical principles outlined in the ACA Code of Ethics and the legal mandates governing mandatory reporting. We will apply the ACA ethical decision-making model to this scenario. This framework helps counselors systematically navigate dilemmas while adhering to ethical principles. The model steps include identifying the problem, applying the ACA Code of Ethics, evaluating the nature and dimensions of the dilemma, generating possible actions, assessing their consequences, selecting the best course of action, and finally, implementing that action. Several ACA codes guide our actions in this scenario. For example, serious and foreseeable harm and legal requirements, minimal disclosure, disclosure of confidential information, consultations of ethical obligations, personal values, respect for confidentiality, explanation of limitations, creating and maintaining records and documentation, inability to give consent, confidentiality regarding end-of-life decisions, and respect for privacy. Regarding legal considerations, under Colorado law, counselors are required to report confessions involving harm to vulnerable individuals or murder. The Tarasoff v. Regents of the University of California case established the duty to warn identifiable victims. Colorado Statute CRS 1321-117 extends this duty to threats communicated in therapy sessions. Some potential actions include 1. We take no action, so we ignore the confession which might preserve confidentiality but fails to protect others and violates our ethical duties. 2. We encourage autonomy. We suggest self-reporting, which respects the client's independence but might not ensure adequate protection for others. 3. We document the session and consult with a supervisor, which allows for informed decision-making while maintaining accountability. 4. We take the mandatory reporting route, so we alert authorities, which ensures public safety but may strain the therapeutic relationship. For our chosen approach, we recommend a combination of transparency, consultation, and mandatory reporting. Our steps include being honest with the client about our reporting obligations, consulting with a supervisor immediately after the session, advocating for the client throughout the process, helping them navigate the emotional and legal consequences, and documenting all actions thoroughly for legal and ethical accountability. This approach aligns with the ACA Code of Ethics, ensuring safety while preserving as much of the therapeutic relationship as possible. I'll now hand it over to Larissa to address the second question.
Thank you, Hope. The second question is equally critical. Are we responsible for addressing potential risks involving the client's aunt? Assessing imminent danger. The client's mention of caring for her aunt does not necessarily imply immediate danger. However, given her past actions, there is a potential risk that cannot be ignored. Ethical and legal obligations. ACA Code B2A, counselors must act when a client poses a serious risk of harm to another person. Colorado law mandates reporting when there is a threat of violence against a specific individual. Tariff's decision extends the counselor's duty to warn and protect identifiable victims. Chosen approach. To address the potential risks, we propose the following steps. Detailed documentation. Maintain comprehensive notes about the client's disclosures and concerns regarding her aunt. Consultation. Discuss the case with a supervisor to evaluate the necessity of reporting. Client support. Provide emotional care, focusing on the client's guilt, anxiety, and the feelings of responsibility. This includes performing risk assessments like the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, developing a safety plan, and exploring coping mechanisms. Referring the client to grief counseling or support groups as needed. Also, we will encourage alternate care arrangements, such as supporting the client in exploring other caregiving options for her aunt. Balancing ethical conflicts. This dilemma highlights conflicts between autonomy and beneficence, as well as justice and non-maleficence. Our approach prioritizes safety while striving to minimize harm to the client's therapeutic relationship. Ultimately, by taking these actions, we fulfill our ethical and legal responsibilities while continuing to support the client emotionally. Mandatory reporting requirements. Here are the requirements that we would need to have in order to break confidentiality and start reporting to law enforcement. Confession of giving or receiving abuse to vulnerable populations, murder of vulnerable populations, intention to harm self or others, including murder and suicide. Please see ACA Code B2C for exceptions, and terrorism. Now Mike will provide the conclusion and wrap up our discussion.
Thank you, Larissa. To conclude, ethical dilemmas like this one require a balance of professional standards, client care, and public safety. Our key takeaways. Ethical and legal obligations. Counselors must act when clients disclose actions that endanger others, especially vulnerable populations. Transparency and support. Maintaining open communication with the client about our obligations helps preserve trust. And collaboration. Consulting with supervisors and adhering to professional guidelines ensures ethical and legal compliance. Looking ahead. Addressing such dilemmas can be challenging, but there are also opportunities to grow as professionals. By adhering to the ACA Code of Ethics, collaborating with supervisors, and prioritizing safety, we can navigate these situations responsibly. We thank you for your attention. We are now happy to take any questions or hear your thoughts.